But the charades continue here, folks, with another clip between another reporter and Karine Jean-Pierre regarding abortion rights. And Karine here says that it was unconstitutional regarding what the Supreme Court did and kind of an overreach of what they did. It's just... Let's just go ahead and watch it, and then we'll detail it out as we go.
Of the timing of this executive order, obviously the idea of helping patients who need to travel out of out of whatever state they're living in now to get abortion services, other healthcare services. I think that's an idea that you all have been obviously talking about since the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade. I guess why is this executive order coming out now and directing HHS to consider more actions? Presumably they would have been thinking about this already, right?
Well, as you know, the last executive order that we signed, the president signed, was to create a task force. And that task force, one of the reasons it was created is so that it could be streamline our efforts here and our efforts across the agencies to come up with ideas of how to move forward and how to move the best way to really deal with this crisis that's in front of us, I think so. That's one part, right? The task force came together. They are putting forth ideas and ways to move forward. I think the other thing to think about is, the president has executive authority, but he also has to make sure he talks to the legal experts, right? He has to make sure that the ideas that we have or come up with can be done. And so that's also a big part of it too. This is still, this is a government, and so there are ways, there are steps and processes that we have to take in order to take actions as big as these. And so that's something as well to take note. But look, there has been an urgency from this president from day one when the Supreme Court made this extreme decision to take away a constitutional right. It was an unconstitutional action by them, a right that was a right.
It was an unconstitutional action to remove a right that was there. We've talked at length here on the show. We have a lot of new viewers. I'm not going to go over the whole thing again here. But look, and we're going to come back to the clip, even if you are pro-choice or pro-life, in terms of it being a right within itself to have an abortion, it doesn't exist. I was pro-choice. After doing a bunch of research, I became pro-life. I was just ignorant. And I think that's what a lot of people on the pro-choice side of the aisle are, is just ignorant on the issue. Look, just forget the whole life of it being a life for a moment. The right never existed. Even if you go back to Griswold v. Connecticut, talking about contraceptives for married couples and that they have a right to privacy, and that the justices of the time looked at the Bill of Rights. They said the Bill of Rights was an emanation that created penumbras, created shadows, and within those shadows, we could found newly found rights, which they found the zone of privacy, as well as then transferred the language to right to privacy, which paved the way for Roe v. Wade, where they said that, in a nutshell, people had the right to an abortion. And then the Supreme Court act as the legislature in creating different trimesters for which you could have an abortion. So not only did they actually create a right to abortion, if that's what you want to call it, and a zone of privacy, but they also created a pathway to which trimester you could or couldn't get an abortion, acting as a legislature. So even if you weren't pro-life and you're pro-choice, the mechanisms of which the Supreme Court did was wrong in the first place. So forget the religious aspect, forget the pro-life aspect, forget the being a life for a moment. Just what the Supreme Court did was wrong in the first place. So just on that grounds alone, it should have been upheld and overturned. Now, if you want to get into the religious aspect and the life aspect, sure, we could do that. But just from a secular viewpoint of how government's supposed to be ran, which clearly Karine Jean-Pierre doesn't understand that, it wasn't, the whole first place it was unconstitutional. That right was never there in the first place. So much so that not only did the clerks of the justices of the time say it doesn't exist, but even the justices of the time said that it actually didn't exist in the language and that you had to utilize a different amendment to go ahead and find where that would be. Although it eluded for 176 plus years, the framers, the founders, and legislatures of all those times. So this is the type of stuff they're going to peddle and just completely lie to the American public, and nobody wants to do the research on it. So this is how this stuff gets pushed out there by the public, by other Americans of like, oh, it's unconstitutional. I can't believe what they did. They listen to Karine Jean-Pierre, Joe Biden, Nancy Pelosi, AOC, Ilhan Omar, all these knuckleheads. They go out to the justice and protest and waste their time rather than working and paying their bills and asking for government handouts. You know, they could be doing something better because now they believe in this stuff that the White House is trotting out. It's mind-blowing.
For almost 50 years, a right that women had to make a decision on their bodies and how they want to start their families. And so the president has been very...
How they want to start their families? Wouldn't you be ending a family with the right to abortion? Of which the Democrats want till the point of birth, like literally centimeters from the vaginal canal coming out. They want to be able to kill it. There's some Democrats that are on tape saying that they want it to have basically a capability of having an abortion after it's been born. The thing's kicking and screaming. It's alive. It's a freaking human being, and they want to kill the thing. Crazy. But starting a family, and this was a constitutional right for 50 years.
Very clear that he's going to do everything that he can. It doesn't stop with this, but we also understand that, you know, he can't only be the only person working on this, right? That's why we continue to ask Congress to take action.
Am I doing the math right?
But yet, when our government does take action and it doesn't go in the direction you would like, then we need to do executive orders. If we're talking about climate crisis, we need to do executive orders. If you're talking about immigration, we need to do all sorts of things when we don't get our way. We go cry in the street, we whine about it, we complain about it. But look, it wasn't there in the first place. So that's what it's so odd. And it's not like abortions are gone. It just depends and left back up to the states, which is how it's supposed to be. And that's how you'd want things to be, right? Is that you can elect officials, you can elect people that will actually create and put in laws and legislation that you want. I mean, isn't that how things are supposed to be ran? But for some reason, the Democrat Party just wants power in the federal government to be able to dictate what you can and can't do. So that's what's crazy about it. So they're getting upset for the federal government, and in a nutshell, the Supreme Court, dictating what you can and can't do. But yet they want to give the power back to the Supreme Court and the federal government to dictate what you can and can't do. Whereas you would just want elected officials to be able to dictate what you can and can't do, because through those elected officials, you would be able to elect somebody that's going to do what you want to do, or elect somebody that's not going to do what the other side doesn't want to do. So I'm baffled. And I think in a nutshell, the core of this comes from a lack of values, a lack of religion, and furthermore, a lack of teaching civics in school. If any of you are aware, civics hasn't been taught in the school system for a very long time. I want to say in upwards of a decade plus. They don't teach really the formation of government. They do. But how often do you go through the school system without basically knowing anything nowadays? I mean, there's so many clips on the internet where it's like, who was the first president? You know, how many states are there? I mean, how many continents are there? I mean, they can't even answer the basic questions. You know, how many branches of government does the United States have? What are the names of them? Like, they can't even answer basic questions. And these are kids who are like fresh out of the school system. So that's where we're at with all that. Peter Doocy squaring off with Karine Jean-Pierre. Karine Jean-Pierre then saying abortion was a right and that it was unconstitutional with what the Supreme Court did. I mean, you just want to hit your head against the wall listening to this lady. I hope you enjoyed that clip from the Bald Brad Show. If you did, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you can stay up to date on all our future content.